So we're back on the organization of the standards, taking a look at the next concept area of networks and systems design. Here we're talking about hardware and software, and there are 3 standards, and then networks and the internet, which has 5. So you'll see this one is half as big as the one we just did with computational thinking. This one might be a little bit more difficult for you to see how it aligns in your ELA classroom, but hopefully as we start to dive into them, you'll see some correlations that make sense for you and for your students. So moving to page 29 of the PDF, and we're going to break down these standards. The first standard is talking about input and output. We're really talking about how humans interact with technology to design a solution to a problem. So we're thinking about the basics of how the computers kind of impact with us as we're going through our daily lives, and then thinking about those systems. So while you may not be talking about or doing 3D prototypes of something, you could have the students doing research on how that has made an impact on building low-income housing. How has digital design changed the way we look at architecture? You can have those conversations and do that sort of research in your class. As we get to the second standard, we're still within hardware and software, and we're talking about the use of software and hardware as far as how it helps us accomplish a task. So we're talking about language here, right? We're talking about the functioning of the computer, how we can identify what the basic hardware parts and think about how they actually work together. So again, you probably are not going to talk about binary singles to logic gates in your English class, but you certainly could talk about the interaction humans have with technology and how that has changed over time. You could be exploring how new technologies are helping or hindering our society. You can have some really great debates and do some really interesting research projects around those topics that will fit very well into hardware and software. As we get into the next one, which is NSD3, here we're talking about troubleshooting. So this could be a help desk in your classroom. My Chromebook's not working. Can you help? I want to make a video, but I keep making a mistake in this part of the process. How do we fix that? You could talk about, keyword searches and thinking about how you can save some time there if you know the different ways that those words or those keyword strikes work on your keyboards. And then we're going to move into networks and systems design, or networks and the internet. With networks and the internet for number 4, we're talking about how you're the process of transmitting data. So we're thinking right here as far as what are the protocols you put in place for data to be able to be shared and stored on the internet. Again, this may seem a little bit more difficult to think about, but really we're talking about communication here. We're talking about how we can communicate and ways that we can do that in this global society. And once you kind of look at it from that lens, you can definitely think about how we want to transmit data. So you're planning a classroom event. How are you going to utilize social media? How are you going to make sure that you're on the platforms that the community are on to be able to help each other out? So really we're thinking about how we can communicate and how we can allow our data to be transferred. And then when we get down to NSD5, what we're looking at here is we're looking at the being able to identify and describe the physical devices and the locations of data in network. Where is our data stored? How is it stored? This could be looking at privacy policies on the tech tools that our students use, and then analyzing how we're sharing that information. Here we can explore emerging technologies. How fun is it to try out different, maybe Google experiments or different things that can make an impact on our society. So that is it for networks and systems design. Again, I recommend that you pause the video, or now that we're at the end of it, at least go back through and read the actual standards for your grade bands and then the ones above and below.